Hello, folks, and welcome to another edition of Straight Talk with Don Chioffi. I am Don Chioffi, and a lot of water has rolled over the dam since our last meeting. COVID, of course, curtailed a lot of our activities, and I had intended today to have as a guest interviewer Mr. Sam Garuso, good friend of mine, but Sam has been having he's been having some pretty serious medical difficulties, and it's been quite a struggle between COVID and that, and for that reason, we no longer have Sam's Good News as a publication, and that's a sad thing for me and a sad thing for Sam. But there's some reorganization plans in the works. Hopefully, if he can get the situation under control, there may be a revival of Sam's Good News somehow. But that's not the reason for this program. The reason for this program is quite a serious situation. And I have chosen to let the people know, the people that I represent especially, in the town of Rutland, where I serve on the select board for the third time in I don't know how many decades. First term was with Rod Gallipo as chairman back in the day. That was my first term, and as a matter of fact, I chaired the board for one of those years of my term, the second year of my term. I believe John Flory was on the board then, and Jesse Billings, and some great people, and Clifford Young, Kip. And the next term was with Joe Dickton as chair of the board, and this term here with Mary Ashcroft as chairman of the board. I was elected in March to fill a vacancy left when Josh Terenzini took his Senate seat in Montpelier, and Josh had been chairman of the board previous to that. It was no secret during the March election that the present board members did not support my campaign. They didn't support my election, and pretty much they haven't supported my voice on the board since that time, and even previous to that time. I tend to be a more conservative voice on the board. I tend to be really fiscally scrutinizing of board actions, and very careful scrutinizer of people's taxpayers' money. And I'm outspoken on those issues, other issues like construction that takes place in the town, expenditure of funds. I just don't want to see runaway budgets, and everybody always considers, when they do budgeting, and we're entering into a budget phase right now in the town, everybody always considers, well, how much of an increase can we sustain in the town for budgets? I always like to look at budgeting as a zero-based operation, and don't just justify something by what you spent last year, and now we're going to spend that, and then we'll increase it by 3 or 5 or 7 or 10%. I don't think we can afford to do that ever. I certainly don't think we can afford to do that in today's world, where inflation is rampant at 10, 12, 17, 25, 32% across the board on staples, on gasoline, on food, just about everything that you can imagine. So I think we have to be very, very careful in terms of our budgeting and very, very careful as to how we spend the money. I tend to be a lot more outspoken than the liberal faction of our town and our board would care to like, which is, well, quite frankly, that's too bad. This is a free country. At least it used to be a free country, and as a patriot and a veteran and somebody that fought for the rights that we have of free speech in a democracy, I just refuse to be cowed. I refuse to be silenced, and I refuse to be unfairly attacked by my board members for any of my outspokenness, because usually I have facts to back me up, and usually I'm talking about factual things. I'm not talking about biased opinions. I try to do my research on items of importance to my townspeople, and I didn't get into this business of politics to benefit myself, and nor have I benefited myself. I serve in politics of all kinds and have since 1970 in the town of Rutland for the benefit of the people of the town of Rutland. And I could care less what party they're in. I happen to run as a Republican, as a conservative, but you know, I ran for the legislature as a Democrat. I was a Democrat back in the day, you know, back when Democrats actually represented working people and union members and teachers, which I was a teacher in the Rutland Town school system for 17 years. So they veered from that course of representation considerably, and as I got older, I, like many other people, became quite a bit more conservative in my older years. And now at 76, I'm a firm conservative, and that be the case. Now, I don't expect that people are going to agree with me on everything that I say, and I don't agree with people on everything they say, but I respect them. And the people of Rutland Town have always been able to count on me to back them, and I care really less about their party than I do their ideas. If they have good ideas, and they have ideas that can be workable for the town of Rutland, and then I support that, and I support them, and I will listen to them. And if I disagree with them, I will tell them honestly. I don't play the backstabbing game of telling everybody that I agree with them and then turning around and doing something different. Now, because I'm outspoken, I post on Facebook, and that's the subject of this particular meeting. There are a lot of issues on Facebook, and one of them that I was pretty actively involved with back in March, along with my own campaign, which I had to run, and I ran successfully. Was a Rutland City campaign on the part of three very, very qualified candidates for school board in the city of Rutland. Charlene Seward, Stephanie Studley, and Tricia O'Connor ran for the school board, and they ran specifically on the platform of restoring the Raider name, of which I'm very proud, being a Rutland Raider of class of 1963 and president of that class of 1963 at Rutland High School. Very proud of that name and all it represented. Pride, integrity, really, really strong athletic prowess, and all the pride that a proud chieftain would show as a proud member of an indigenous Indian race. Never anything negative about that whatsoever. So these three ran on the platform of restoring the Raider name, which a previous board had removed, ostensibly without the permission of the electorate and without the permission of the alumni, and in a very, very backroom type disingenuous manner. Okay, so it was a heated campaign, and the three school board members that ran on that platform of restoring the Raider name won the election. When the dust had settled in March, they were the new school board members, and they had changed the majority of the board to their position. Now, when they didn't win just by marginal amounts, they won handily. They won by sizable margins. It was a clear and convincing victory that the three candidates pulled off. Now, you would think that the people of Rutland had spoken when they came out in large numbers in support of these three candidates, and so did we. Usually, when a group of candidates or candidates that have a particular position win an election by that kind of a margin, we call them the majority. Those that take the opposite position on that issue or any other issue and they lose are usually called the minority. That's politics. There's majorities and minorities of all kinds in politics on all kinds of different issues. This particular Facebook post had to do with a majority and a minority opinion. A majority opinion being that the Raider name should be restored, and the minority opinion being that the people's vote in March didn't count. Democracy doesn't count. We don't need to have elections to determine this. Rather, we should listen to a puny, whining minority, and that's what I classified them as, a political minority that just refused to accept the will of the people in March. And that was the subject of the post that I made. And my board decided that they would take this word minority and interpret it the way it fit their goal of silencing me and denigrating my name and basically slandering me at a public meeting as a racist for using the term minority. Now, I don't know. When I listen to Congress, whether it's the Senate or the House of Representatives, I'm always listening to somebody say, the majority leader made a statement that the minority leader responded very vocally to the majority leader. The minority whip, the majority whip, these terms are used incessantly in the political arena, and that's exactly what this post was about. It was about a political issue in the city of Rutland. It was abundantly clear that that was the case, and not only that, I had informed the chairman of our board in an email that's exactly what it was, and that there was no reference whatsoever made to race anywhere in the post by anyone, including me. So this board of mine that doesn't care to listen to anything that I have to say, obviously doesn't care to listen to any of the people that I represent that have elected me over years and years and years, and that I have dealt with in the town of Rutland for a long, long time, and they've insulted them. This board decided that they would censure me for this comment. They would censure me for exercising, first of all, for exercising my right to free speech that they can't even interpret correctly. And further, that in addition to censuring me, they would strip me of my committee assignment. Well, everyone knows when they run for an office that if they're in the minority, which I am in the minority on that board, that they're not going to get the committee assignments that they may want. And I didn't. Chair appointed me to some committees, two of which were virtually non-existent. She appointed me to non-existent committee. Scholarship committee, we meet, we go over the scholarship applications, we decide who's worthy, we give the scholarships out, and it's over. That's over in 10 days, 20 days, boom, done. And you got 3-year term, you got a full year. Townwide celebration committee. Well, we're in COVID era. We didn't have any gatherings. There wasn't going to be any townwide celebration committee, so that was a non-existent committee. Well, that was two committees. She got that out of the way, and she could say, "Well, I was fair. I gave everybody this many committees." Yeah, including the two that didn't do anything. That's all right. Now, being a realist, you're not going to get the choice in the plum committee assignments. You can't go to the leader of your board as a minority member and say, well, I want this one and I want this one, and say, well, you're not going to get that. And that's fine, because that's the way politics works. The majority controls. But how would you feel if your representative in Montpelier or anyone else, because somebody didn't like him or her, didn't say, well, you don't get the committee you want. We're going to put you on this one and this one and this one. How would you like it if they said, well, we don't like you, so we're not going to put you on any committee. You don't get a right to participate in any committee discussion. We all do, but you don't. And you're going to say that that's equal representation on the board? You have 5 members that all got elected by the same people in the town to serve their town, and you're going to discriminate against one of your members? For what? For what offense? Because he made a statement that you misinterpreted and decided that you were going to call racism with no proof? What's this town coming to, and what kind of an example will this set? If this is allowed to stand, what kind of an example will this set, not only as an embarrassment for Rutland Town? They called me the embarrassment. Well, I got news for you. I'm not the embarrassment. They're the embarrassment. Discriminating against a minority member of your board because you don't like him or because you don't like what he said. You're hurt because you misinterpreted the word minority. You chose to misinterpret the word minority. Oh, we have to respect the minority. What does that mean? Respect the minority that lost the election in Rutland City? How do we respect that minority? By going against what the majority people won and the people voted for? I don't think so. That's not the democracy I learned about when I was in school. So the greater crime here and the greater embarrassment here is, if this is allowed to stand, this sets the most dangerous precedent in the state of Vermont that I can think of in my participation in government since I was 16 years old. That a majority group on any board in this state can take the power unto themselves with no proof, no illegal actions on the part of a member, no egregious actions, can take the rights of that member that were duly granted to that member, not by them, but by the people, the voters of that municipality, and deny the people of that municipality their proper representation on that board simply because they have a majority and they can do it. And that's happening all across this country right now. It's not whether it's right or wrong, and it's not whether it's legal or illegal. It's simply, if you have the power, you can exercise it until somebody tells you you can't. Now, this is dangerous, dangerous business. And my answer to this is very simple. And that will, I hope, be able to conclude my remarks today. I have thought long and hard of this. It would be easy, actually a lot easier for me, to cower underneath their pressure and simply fade and go away. Most of the people that know me know that's not in my character. It wasn't ever in my character, and I think it would be a betrayal of my character to do that. And the fight that I wage is not for me. The fight that I wage is for democracy, freedom of speech, and representative government. Representative government of the people, by the people, and for the people. It's not of the select board, by the select board, and for the select board. That's not the way it works. It's the people that count. And those people that don't have, for whatever reason, many people are just not tuned to politics the way I am, and that's fine. That's why I'm here, to represent them, to give them a voice. When somebody tries to take that voice away from you, you should be offended. Whether you agree with me or not, you should be offended that they would take a voice away from you, the people. My answer to that is very simple. It's an illegal act. It's an unjust act. It's a defamatory act. It's actually a slanderous act. And the two members of the board who happen to be professionals in this state, attorneys, have a much greater responsibility than I do as a simple select board member. I take my responsibilities very seriously. They have a professional responsibility and a code of ethics to follow as members of the bar of the state that goes far beyond this. When knowingly false statements are made about a member of their board, intended to harm that member, intended to denigrate that member's good character and good name in the community, which has been established over a lifetime, that is a serious, serious offense against the ethical standards in the state of Vermont that the Bar Association promulgates and is responsible for enforcing. I have, as of Friday, entered an official complaint with the Secretary of State of the state of Vermont to these actions. I have also entered a complaint with the Attorney General of the state of Vermont against these illegal actions. And I have also entered a complaint with the Professional Conduct Board of the Vermont Bar Association against the two lawyers who colluded to defame my name and my good character in the town of Rutland, in the state of Vermont, and in this country. And I will not tolerate it. I don't think the state should tolerate it, and I certainly don't think that the people of Rutland Town should tolerate it. It is not the way to run a government. You can debate with your members, you can disagree with your members, and you can be hurt by your members, but you're not allowed to take the voice of the people away, and you're not allowed to discriminate against a member of your board simply because you don't like him, simply because you're not of the same party. And we run as nonpartisan, but everybody knows what party people represent. Everybody knows that Ms. Ashcroft is probably one of the most liberal candidates in Rutland County. She's the chairman of the Democratic Party, and it's no secret that she's brought liberalism to the town of Rutland. In everything she does, and all the people she backs, and in her positions. That's just a fact. We try not to bring factionalism and party business into the town governance. What you saw at the last meeting was a travesty against that particular principle. That was ultra-liberal cancel culture at work. Canceling Don Chioffi's right to represent the citizens who duly elected him to perform that service and that he has righteously performed since March in the election. Now, we have in the town of Rutland been granted $1.1 million of COVID relief ARPA fund money. That must be decided, it must be discussed how this money will be spent, on which projects and or programs or whatever. In addition to the total budgeting in the town of Rutland, which is considerable in and of itself, $1.1 million is no small amount of money. That takes discussion from all 5 intelligent members of a board, and not to give one member of the board the right to discuss in committee, which is where most of the discussion occurs, and everybody that has served on any board anywhere knows that the lion's share of the work, the workhorse work, is done in committee and then brought forth as a recommendation to the full board where additional discussion can take place. But basically, out of the respect that board members have for each other, and which I have exhibited the same respect for my fellow members, generally speaking, recommendations of the committees to the board are approved in the great majority of cases. That being said, not to have any representation on any committee denies the people of Rutland a voice that they elected to be there to decide the expenditure of $1.1 million of ARPA funds. And that, to me, is clearly illegal action of the board to deny that kind of discussion. I don't know what more I can say. I've decided to explain this because this is a forum where I'm not censored and where I could give a full explanation, which I wasn't allowed to give. I was cut short when I tried to give the explanation. I mean, stop and think about it, folks. You got 4 board members who are vociferously attacking you for racism that you didn't commit, and you try to give an explanation, and your chairman says, well, Don, you've gone for five minutes here. Oh, really? You're going to try to destroy the reputation that I've created in 76 years on this earth, and you want to give me 5 minutes to defend myself. Isn't that magnanimous of you? And this is what your town government has degenerated into, because the majority doesn't want to listen to a minority view. I think there's a better way to do it. And Mr. Bagnett, when he concluded his remarks, and I objected to them, said, well, you do what you have to do. Well, this is what I'm doing. And he also said, if there's a way that I could remove you from the board, I would. Talk about hubris. Talk about the absolute definition of hubris. You, as the sole authority, would figure out a way to remove me from the board and deny the people their elective right to pick a candidate. God help us if we follow this routine. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be back with you on Straight Talk. Have a great day.